Welcome back to my channel, where I share with you some of the scariest and most mysterious stories from real-life experiences. In this video, I will be sharing a story about a strange encounter that took place during a camping trip in the mountains. This is a story that still haunts the person who submitted the story, and I'm excited to share it with you and hear your thoughts. So grab a snack and make sure the lights are off as we dive into this chilling tale of the unknown. On a beautiful summer weekend, my husband and I decided to take our two daughters, ages 6 and 8, on a camping trip to the mountains. We had been looking forward to this trip for weeks, longing for the chance to escape the pollution and hustle of the city to enjoy some peace and quiet in the great outdoors. As we packed up our gear and hit the road, we were filled with excitement and anticipation for the adventure that lay ahead. As we drove up the winding mountain road, we marveled at the breathtaking views that surrounded us. The towering peaks of the mountains rose up on either side, their rugged beauty a testament to the power and majesty of nature. The tension and stress of city life melting away as we drove further and further into the wilderness, and we were filled with a sense of peace and serenity that we had not felt in a long time. Our goal was to camp at our usual spot, a secluded area with a picturesque view of the valley below. However, when we arrived, we were disappointed to find that there were already a few cars there, and we didn't want to be too close to them and potentially disturb their peace and quiet. After some discussion, we decided to continue on and see if we could find another suitable campsite further down the road. Despite the minor setback, we remained in high spirits, eager to explore the area and see what other wonders it had to offer. As we drove on, we passed through dense forests and fields of wildflowers, the air filled with the sweet scent of pine and the sounds of birds singing overhead. It was a magical experience, one that we knew we would never forget. My husband decided to take us off the beaten path and follow a small stream that flowed nearby. He loved to fish, and we always preferred to camp near a water source for convenience and to have a ready supply of fresh, cold mountain water. We drove our sturdy 4x4 truck along the narrow, bumpy dirt road, passing through dense forests and fields of wildflowers. The air was clean and crisp, and the scenery was breathtaking. As we drove along the winding dirt road, the peaceful scenery was suddenly disrupted by the appearance of a deer standing directly in our path. The animal's eyes were fixed upon us as we approached, seeming to bore into our very souls with their intensity. It was as if the deer was trying to communicate something to us, its gaze filled with an otherworldly insight and understanding that was beyond our comprehension. As we approached the deer, we tried to shoo it away, honking the horn and flashing the headlights in an effort to scare it off the road. However, the animal seemed unwilling to move, standing its ground and continuing to stare at us with those intense, otherworldly eyes. As the moments ticked by, the deer's behavior began to become more agitated, as if it were growing angry or annoyed with our presence. Suddenly, it turned to face our truck and began to charge, as if it intended to ram into the vehicle. We were startled and frightened by the deer's sudden aggressive behavior, and we quickly threw the truck into reverse, backing away as quickly as we could. The deer continued to stare at us, its eyes seeming to bore into our very souls, until finally it turned and disappeared into the trees. The encounter left us shaken and disturbed, and we couldn't help but wonder what could have caused the deer to behave in such a bizarre and aggressive manner. As we continued on our journey, we kept a watchful eye out for any further signs of strange or unsettling activity, unsure of what other strange and unsettling events might be in store for us as we ventured deeper into the unknown. After about 10 miles of off-roading, we came to a fork in the road. Both options looked like they hadn't seen any traffic in weeks. Small pine trees about 2 feet tall were growing in the middle of the road, and there were pine leaves and cones scattered all over. Normally, roads that are frequently traveled are clean and clear, with visible skid marks. My husband wanted to take the left fork, but I insisted on going right because the road seemed to be in slightly better condition. He was eager to test out his 4x4 truck on the more rugged left path, but I was able to persuade him to take the safer route. After about 2 more miles of driving, we finally found the perfect campsite. It was tucked away in a secluded area, surrounded by tall trees and a babbling brook. The soft grass was perfect for setting up our tent, and there was plenty of firewood for a cozy campfire at night. There was a small stream about 30 feet from where we had set up our campfire, and the stream split into two smaller branches, with one flowing past the campsite and the other forming a decent-sized pond next to it. The water in the stream burbled as it flowed over rocks and logs, creating a soothing soundtrack for our trip. A family of ducks was paddling on the surface of the pond, adding to the signs of life in the area. Upon arriving at the campsite, we hastened to set up our tents and prepare dinner. Later, as we sat around the campfire, we told ghost stories to the girls, who seemed to thoroughly enjoy them. As the night wore on, we began to hear faint footsteps in the vicinity of the campsite. Despite our attempts to locate the source of the noise, we were unable to see anything in the darkness. As it turned out, the cause of the footsteps was a deer that had come to stand mere feet away from us as we told our story. It seemed to be listening intently, almost as if it too were captivated by the tales we were spinning. The sudden realization that a wild animal had been so close to us without our knowledge was unsettling, to say the least. Its eyes seemed to glow eerily in the dim light of the campfire, and its gaze was fixed upon us with an intensity that was almost unnerving. It was as if the deer were some sort of ghostly presence, come to check on us in the night. However, things took a turn when my husband jokingly suggested that we make the deer our dinner. At the mention of this, the animal suddenly seemed to become agitated, its eyes flashing with what looked like fear or anger. Without warning, the deer turned and darted off into the darkness, disappearing from sight as quickly as it had appeared. As the night wore on, the animal suddenly let out a loud, piercing cry that echoed through the darkness. The sound startled us, causing us to jump to our feet and scan the surroundings for any sign of danger. Despite our attempts to locate the source of the noise, we were unable to see anything in the darkness, and the deer had disappeared from sight. The sudden gust of wind that followed was equally unsettling, blowing gusts of cold air around us and causing the tent to flutter and flap wildly. As the wind picked up, we made the decision to retreat inside and seek shelter from the elements. Despite our initial unease and the strange occurrences of the night, we eventually managed to fall asleep, our dreams filled with images of ghostly deer and other strange, otherworldly creatures. The rest of the night passed uneventfully, and we slowly stirred from our slumber as the dawn broke and the first rays of sunlight filtered through the fabric of the tent. Stretching and yawning, we emerged from the tent to find that the wind had died down and the sky was clear and blue. My husband went down the stream to fish while the girls wanted to play by the pond. I stayed behind to prepare breakfast, but as I was tending to the fire, I thought I heard the girls talking to someone else. The distance and the sound of the stream made it difficult to make out what they were saying, but it sounded like there was another voice conversing with them. I didn't think much of it at the time, assuming that a family or two had set up camp nearby and their daughter was playing with mine. But when I called the girls over for breakfast, I asked them who they had been talking to, and they looked at me quizzically, saying they didn't know what I was talking about. I was certain I had heard another voice, but it couldn't have been anyone else, since we had driven off the main road and were in a very remote location. My husband returned with some freshly caught trouts, and we sat down to a hearty breakfast. As we were eating, the feeling that something strange had happened that morning lingered, but I couldn't quite put my finger on it. The evening began to set in, and so my husband decided to go fishing again. He told us that trouts tend to come out to feed just before they go to sleep for the night. Our eldest daughter, who was eager to hear more stories around the campfire, implored him not to be gone for too long. Remembering the precautions we always took when camping in bear country, I reminded him to bring his handgun with him for protection. At about 8:10 p.m., while the girls stayed by the campfire, I set about washing our clothes in the stream. The water was icy cold as the sun disappeared behind the mountains, and the current was a bit calmer at this time. As I scrubbed the clothes against a rock, I thought I heard the same voice that I had heard earlier that morning when I thought the girls were talking to someone. They had told me that there was no one with them at the time, and I had chalked it up to my imagination. But now as I listened carefully, I was certain that there was someone else nearby. I couldn't shake the feeling that something was amiss, so I slowly stood up and cautiously peeked out from behind the bushes. My heart was pounding in my chest as I scanned the area, trying to see if there was anyone close by. At first, everything seemed normal, but then I saw something that sent a shiver down my spine. Sitting across from my daughters by the campfire was a woman with long, tangled hair. She was very old, with wrinkles etched deeply into her skin and big thin lips that stretched into a wide smile as she laughed at something the girls said. But it was her eyes that terrified me the most. They were pale and milky, almost as if they were sightless. And every time she laughed, she would toss her hair back over her shoulder, revealing her empty, toothless mouth. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. Who was this woman, and how had she found us here in this remote, secluded spot? My heart raced and my stomach dropped as I realized that something was very wrong. I felt a sudden urge to run, to flee from this strange and unsettling presence, but I knew that I had to stay and protect my daughters. Steeling myself, I stepped out from behind the bushes, determined to confront this mysterious and unsettling figure. My religious upbringing had taught me that some beings were not of this world, and as I gazed upon the woman sitting across from my daughter, I knew with a deep certainty that she was one of them. There was something about her, the way she moved, the way she looked at me with those pale, sightless eyes, that filled me with a sense of dread and foreboding. I tried to call out to the girls, to warn them of the danger that lurked just feet away, but before I could even open my mouth, a gunshot rang out from downstream. I turned towards the sound, my heart racing with fear and confusion, and then looked back at the campfire. But the woman was gone, as if she had never even been there. I cried out in shock and terror, my mind struggling to make sense of what had just happened. I ran towards the girls, who looked up at me in confusion, asking me about the gunshot. They didn't seem to have seen the woman, and I knew that I had to get them out of there before it was too late, to escape the influence of whatever malevolent force had just invaded our camp. My mind raced as I gathered our belongings, trying to come up with a plan to get us out of there safely. I knew that we had to be vigilant, to keep our eyes and ears open for any further signs of danger, and to trust our instincts if anything felt off. As the evening wore on, my concerns and anxieties only seemed to grow. Everything felt strange and out of place, and I couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. In an attempt to find some comfort and guidance, I prayed with my daughters. After a few minutes, I saw my husband running towards us from the stream. His face was etched with worry, and he looked like he had seen something disturbing. When I asked him about the gunshot we had heard earlier, he brushed it off and told me it was nothing. He seemed hesitant to say more about it. I also asked him about his fishing trip, but he told me he hadn't had much luck and hadn't caught anything. It was getting dark, so we were all forced to go to bed early. My daughters were disappointed because they had been looking forward to my husband continuing the stories he had been telling them the previous night. Despite my husband's reluctance to tell me what was really going on, I just hoped that whatever it was, it wouldn't come back to haunt us. The following day, my husband was eager to depart as soon as we awakened. He wished to return home to get some rest before work and suggested that we could stop and purchase something on the way back. We hastily packed up our campsite and headed home. During the journey, I inquired about what had truly transpired the previous night and why he had been so jumpy. Eventually, he related to me the full story of what he had encountered while fishing, and this is how his story went. As it was getting dark, he had decided to walk upstream to the campsite where he encountered a mysterious, hairy animal drinking from the stream. My husband was an avid outdoorsman with extensive knowledge of the various big game animals native to our state, and was unable to identify the creature. It was tall and similar to a deer, but its gait was characterized by a crunching noise as it walked. The animal's body was covered in long curly hair, and its most distinctive feature was its wide elongated mouth. As it drank from the stream, its head would tilt back, revealing its white eyes. Fearing for his safety, my husband retrieved his gun and aimed it at the creature. Upon noticing this, the animal glared at my husband before jumping onto a nearby boulder by the stream. My husband fired at the spot where the animal had been standing and missed, causing it to emit a noise of apparent frustration. The creature then began to scream, its cries resembling those of a mountain lion in heat. However, as my husband listened more closely, he realized that the screams sounded more like a woman in distress. Overcome with fear, he released the fish back into the stream and ran back to where we were camping. To this day, we are still uncertain about what my husband saw or what I experienced. I am inclined to believe that the creature my husband encountered while fishing and the one I saw sitting with my daughters are one and the same. In my cultural belief system, there are malevolent spirits that roam the forests, capable of taking on various forms in order to deceive and harm unsuspecting individuals. It is possible that the entity my husband encountered was the spirit's true form, while the one I saw was a reflection or manifestation it used to interact with my daughters. It is a chilling thought, and one that fills me with a sense of unease and caution whenever we venture into the wilderness. Thank you for listening to this true scary story. I hope it gave you the chills and made you think about the mysterious nature of the world around us. These kinds of stories are not just fiction but real-life experiences that people go through, and it's fascinating to know how people react in these situations. I hope you enjoyed this video, and that it sparked your interest in learning more about strange occurrences and other paranormal events. I would love to hear your thoughts on this story and if you have any of your own experiences to share. Before I end this video, I would like to say that as an outdoor enthusiast, it is of the utmost importance for my audiences to prioritize safety when embarking on camping excursions. Though camping can provide a thrilling and fulfilling experience, as it allows individuals to connect with nature and disconnect from the distractions of modern society, it is crucial to remember that we are visitors in the natural world, and as such, must be prepared for unexpected situations. To ensure safety while camping, it is crucial to engage in thorough research and planning prior to the trip. This includes analyzing weather forecasts, familiarizing oneself with the area, and understanding emergency protocols. It is also essential to bring all necessary supplies, such as food, water, and a well-stocked first aid kit. Additionally, it is important to inform a trusted friend or family member of one's plans, including expected return dates, in case of an emergency. In the event that something doesn't feel right, it is crucial to call off the camping trip and return home. Though it may be disappointing to return home prematurely, the well-being of all participants must always be the primary concern. I hope you have a fantastic day today. Take the time to appreciate the little things and enjoy the moments that make up your day.